As you'll see in this sliding double dovetail demo, putting a cut exactly where you want it to be is the essence of your new INCRA Jig precision fence system. Just align the back of the INCRA Jig on your scale mark and lock in the perfect cut every time. From important routing operations such as edge forming, grooving, and rabbiting to the strength and beauty of high-quality joinery, your new INCRA Jig router table fence system will quickly become the tool of choice for all of your routing tasks. This DVD will take you step by step through assembly, setup, calibration, and use of one of the most important tools in today's wood shops. The joinery section covers everything from the simple but elegant box joint to half-blind dovetails, through dovetails, and the exquisite corner post dovetail. The variation section will teach you how to make dozens of pattern variations on every joint type. Projects like this CD cabinet are easily within your reach with INCRA's capabilities. Joinery capacity of 8 inches is perfect for box and drawer making projects. But don't forget all those other cuts your INCRA Jig is designed for: datoing, rabbiting, edge forming, sliding dovetails, and more. By adding a little technique to the positioning accuracy of the INCRA Jig fence system, you'll find joinery like this striking corner post dovetail easy to add to your next project. All the techniques are covered fully and in real time, so you'll know just what to expect. Just like the sliding double dovetail we're cutting here, your INCRA Jig will duplicate any predetermined pattern using only the scale. Or you can use the included joinery templates to make advanced joinery projects even easier. The incremental positioning racks inside every INCRA Jig make positioning accuracy easy. These positioning racks locate your fence at exact multiples of 1/32 of an inch. All you do is put it in the ballpark, and INCRA does the rest, placing every cut you lock in to within 1 to 2 thousandths of an inch. Now that's accuracy you can count on. Put INCRA to the test on your next project. The more demanding the requirement, the more you'll appreciate the dependable, consistent results your INCRA Jig fence system will provide. There we have it, a perfect sliding double dovetail. When every cut counts, you can count on INCRA. So open the box, grab a few tools, and let's get started. Begin by assembling the INCRA sawtooth racks to the body of the INCRA Jig. Place a rack into one of the receiving grooves and align the mounting holes. Now, place the hex nuts from hardware pack D1 into the hex recesses on the rack and loosely fasten using the Phillips head screws with washers. Repeat for all of the remaining racks. Don't tighten the fasteners just yet. You should be able to easily shift each of the 4 racks with your fingers. Place the 2 INCRA Jig body halves together with the measuring scale side on top. Now, secure the 2 halves together using the carriage bolt, the large washer, and the clamping knob from hardware pack D1. The carriage bolt should pass through the body half with the measuring scale first. Tighten the clamping knob. Now tighten all 8 of the Phillips head fasteners. This setup automatically orients the racks for perfect working accuracy. To attach the INCRA Jig to your router table, you'll need a piece of 3/4 inch plywood, 9 inches wide and long enough to span the width of your router table. Remove the top half of your INCRA Jig and center the bottom half, scale side up, with the carriage bolt in place on the plywood. Square the INCRA Jig to your plywood, then attach using the number 10 by 1 inch wood screws with washers included in hardware pack D2. After attaching, replace the top half of the INCRA Jig along with the washer and clamping knob. Secure the base to your router table with a pair of C-clamps as shown. Or, if your router table includes slotted holes, you can attach the subbase with user-provided T-bolts, washers, and clamping knobs. Just drill holes in the plywood to align with your router table slots, a great way to keep your clamps available for more important chores. Attach the fence to your INCRA jig front end using the 1/4 20 by 1 3/8 socket head fasteners with washers and rectangular nuts from hardware pack D3 included with your fence system. The raised rim on the rectangular nuts should face away from the fence. Just slide the rectangular nuts into the T-slots located at the front end of the INCRA jig's top body half and tighten the fasteners to secure. After attaching your fence, check for square with your router tabletop. If any adjustment is necessary, loosen the mounting screws and insert a paper or plastic shim between the INCRA jig and the rear of the fence. A shim placed below the fasteners will increase the angle between fence and table. A shim placed above the fasteners, as shown, will decrease the angle. Tighten the fasteners to secure the fence. User-made sub-fences can be added for use with larger diameter cutters. Just drill and counterbore the fences described in the owner's manual. The supplied 1/4 20 by 7/8 socket head fasteners will attach sub-fences up to 3/4 of an inch thick. To assemble the stop positioner, insert the 2 1/4 20 hex bolts from hardware pack D3 through the holes on the stop. Add the 2 washers and loosely attach the 1/4 20 thumb knobs. Now, slide the hex bolt heads into the T-slot on the outfeed end of the INCRA fence. Position the stop as needed and tighten the thumb knobs. Perfect for the stopped cuts required for these dovetail pin cuts. The cutaway notch permits positioning inside your cutter's diameter. And by placing a pencil mark on the fence, you can easily mark stop positions you want to return to later. The mark also provides a reference for fine-tuning your stop's position. Assemble the right angle fixture as described in the owner's manual. In use, your right angle fixture guides vertical pieces like these tailboards safely through the cut. When clamping to your right angle fixture, always press the fixture against your fence, then immobilize by clamping it to your tabletop with a spring clamp. Place your stock against the fence and secure with a wooden hand screw clamp. Move the spring clamp to the rear of your router table, ready for use when you need it next. In operation, always apply firm pressure with the right hand to keep the fixture against the fence. Downward pressure with the left hand will keep your boards on the table for consistent results. If you choose to make your own fence and right angle fixture, just use the plans and dimensions shown in the owner's manual. Make the fence first, then attach with the fasteners from hardware pack D2. Now you can use your INCRA jig in making the right angle fixture. For a stop positioner, cut a rabbet on a piece of stock to the dimensions shown in the manual, then simply clamp to the outfeed end of your fence when needed. Review the factory accessories chapter of this DVD for tips and operation techniques. To move your INCRA jig's fence from one scale setting to another, loosen the clamping knob 2 full turns and lift the rear of the INCRA jig's upper body. Slide to a line over the desired mark on the scale, then lower the upper body to re-engage the racks. You should be able to shift the upper body from side to side easily when the racks are engaged properly. Tighten the clamping knob. Initially, the alignment between the scale and the body may appear slightly off, but adjustment is easy. Loosen the 4 Phillips head screws that secure the upper racks, then loosen the clamping knob about 1/2 turn. Now shift the upper body forward or backward until the rear of the upper body aligns clearly at your mark. Retighten the clamping knob, then tighten the 4 Phillips head screws. Now, anywhere along the scale that you lower the INCRA jig, the scale will align perfectly. Joinery may be the icing on the cake, but common cutting like edge forming, rabbiting, and grooving are the real bread and butter of any woodworking shop. Here are a few simple tips to set up your INCRA jig fence system for each of these types of cuts. For grooving and dadoing, you'll want to first zero the fence to the cutter. After installing your router bit, move the INCRA jig to align at 0 on the scale and tighten the clamping knob. Slide the subbase forward to align the fence to the edge of the cutter. Now, sight down the fence while tapping the base until the gap of light between the cutter and the fence disappears. Clamp your subbase securely to the table. With this setup, the scale setting is equal to the distance between the fence and the cutter, just like your table saw, and makes precise groove location an easy task for your next project. For rabbiting, you'll find zeroing to the opposite side of the cutter a better choice. Just set the INCRA jig to 0 and tighten the clamping knob. Slide the subbase forward until the fence covers the bit. Hold a straight edge against the fence and tap the base back until the cutter grazes the straight edge. Clamp your subbase securely to the table. This setup gives a scale reading equal to your rabbit width. When you move the fence to 1/2 inch, for example, your rabbit will be 1/2 inch wide. For edge forming, you'll often want to add user-made subfences to accommodate the larger diameter of most edge forming bits. Chamfers, roundovers, and Roman ogis are just a few of the many edge forming cutters available. With these bits, you'll want to set the 0 position at the location for your final cut, which is often in line with the cutter's bearing. Unclamp and slide the subbase forward until the fence covers the bit. Hold a straight edge aligned with the bearing and tap the base until the straight edge contacts both the fence and bearing. You can now move the fence to a negative setting and approach the final cut location in several lighter passes. These smaller bites often produce smoother, splinter-free results. A carefully placed shop-vac wand is a simple solution to chip removal. There are many things you will do with your INCRA jig at the router table: grooving, rabbiting, and edge forming, to name a few. But there is nothing quite so satisfying as a perfectly cut box joint or dovetail using your INCRA jig precision fence system. With just a little preparation and a few quick setups, joints like these are surprisingly easy. Let's take a look. Before beginning your first joinery project, make sure your stock is flat, smooth, and square cut. No dovetail or box joint jig today can produce quality work from stock like this. When selecting your stock width for a joinery project, a good rule of thumb is to allow enough width for at least a 1/2 pin at both edges of the stock. To determine the width, just use the full-scale diagrams provided at the back of your owner's manual. The cross-hatched area represents solid wood. Just measure from the approximate center of any one of the cross-hatched pins to the approximate center of another. To make your project wider or narrower, just step over to the next pin. As for material thickness, the suggested stock thickness under each diagram is a good starting point. If you must vary stock thickness because of your project requirements, just keep these important guidelines in mind. For box joints, when cutting material thicker than 3/8 of an inch, you must make the cuts first at 3/8, then increase the depth and repeat. Never cut deeper than 3/8 in a single pass. For half-blind and corner post dovetails, always use material that is greater in thickness than the cutter's depth of cut. For through dovetails, keep in mind that for a given cutter, there is one and only one depth of cut that will provide a good fit. Once you have established the depth of cut, as described in the next chapter, thickness plane your stock down to match the depth of cut. Never raise the cutter up to match your stock thickness. To set your depth of cut for box joints, simply raise the cutter to match your stock thickness. For dovetail joints, depth of cut is used to control the fit of your joint. Too low and the fit is too loose. Too high and the fit is too tight. Just follow along and you'll learn how to set it just right. Install one of the 2 dovetail bits listed and set the depth of cut to the value shown in the diagram. 1/4 inch for a 1/2 inch 14-degree bit, or 3/8 for a 1/2 inch 10-degree bit. We're using the 1/2 inch 14-degree bit, so we'll raise the cutter up to a 1/4 inch. Move your INCRA jig to 0 and tighten the clamping knob. Then unclamp and move the sub-base to position the fence over the cutter so that about half of the bit is inside the fence notch. Tighten the clamps to secure the sub-base. Now, clamp 2 pieces of square cut stock to the right angle fixture and make the first cut. Loosen the clamping knob and move the INCRA jig to align at 7/8 of an inch on the scale. Tighten the clamping knob. Now make the second cut on your test boards. The 7/8 inch spacing is shown as the spacing to set depth of cut under the diagram of your pattern. Unclamp the 2 boards and test the fit. Here we have a loose fit. If you pull the dovetails one against the other, the gap that forms is equal to the amount you need to raise the cutter to tighten the joint. If the boards are too tight or won't fit at all, you need to lower the bit to loosen the joint. Just remember, heighten to tighten, lower to loosen. Place one of the test cut boards next to the cutter to help you gauge how much you have raised or lowered the cutter. After adjusting, return your INCRA jig to a 0 setting and tighten the clamping knob. Now, clamp the 2 boards to your right angle fixture and repeat the test cuts as before, a cut at 0 and a cut at 7/8 of an inch. Remember to always make the test cuts on a fresh corner of the boards. There we have it, a perfect fit. After setting your router bit's depth of cut, you need to position your INCRA jig and install the joinery template so that all of the cuts happen in the right places on your stock. This is easily accomplished through a setup process called centering. Whether setting up for box joints or dovetails, the simple steps to follow should always be used. When preparing the stock for your box, also cut a 6-inch long piece of 3/4 inch stock to the exact same width. We'll use this piece as our centering board. Move your INCRA jig to 3 inches and tighten the clamping knob. Mark the center of your centering board and visually align the mark with the approximate center of the bit. Unclamp the sub-base and slide the base forward until the fence contacts the edge of the board. Reclamp the sub-base to the router table, making sure that the center mark on the board is still aligned with the approximate center of the bit. Turn the router on and, using a rubber-soled push block, cut a groove along the entire length of the board. Turn the stock end for end and repeat the cut. With the router off, turn the cutter to its widest profile and slide the test board against the fence to rest just over the cutter. There should be a small gap between the edge of the bit and one side of the groove. To center the router bit on the test board, loosen the clamps that secure the sub-base to your router table and, as you hold the board against the fence, tap the base until you see an equal gap on both sides of the cutter. Now that you've found the center of your board, you can install the joinery template. Place a piece of template tape to overlap the side of the template near the end. Slide the template into the receiving slot and align the mark representing the suggested center cut with the end of the INCRA upper body. You'll find the suggested center cut listed under the diagram of each template pattern in your owner's manual. Press the tape to secure the template. Now let's do some joinery. In the 3 joinery techniques to follow, half-blind dovetails, corner post dovetails, and through dovetails, all of the examples shown reflect stock preparation and centering based on 2 3/4 inch wide material. If you set your depth of cut for a 1/2 inch 14-degree dovetail bit, center your INCRA jig for 2 3/4 inch wide stock, then prepare your stock accordingly, you'll be able to duplicate the examples shown cut for cut. Begin by watching the half-blind dovetail section, since many of the tips and techniques shown and fully described in that chapter may be mentioned only briefly in the corner post and through dovetail sections. After centering, set the INCRA jig to a position where the router bit is only exposed 1/32 of an inch or less. You can test this with your centering board. This position is referred to as the scoring pass. Note the scoring pass position on the measuring scale for later reference. Now, we'll cut a dovetail-shaped rabbet across each end of both tailboards. The scoring pass cut will shear the fibers of the wood to start the rabbet without tear-out or splintering, and is a good technique for any rabbet or edge cutting operation. The full rabbet width needs to be about 7/32 of an inch wide. But rather than making this cut in a single pass, take out the material with 3 subsequent cuts, moving the fence back 1/16 of an inch for each pass. While this does add a little time to the rabbet cut, it yields a smoother cut result. Apply light downward pressure to keep the tailboards on the table, and use your rubber-soled push block to move the piece through the cut. Now we'll make the through cuts that produce the tails on the boards. Return your INCRA jig to the scoring pass position and tighten the clamping knob. Press the right angle fixture against the fence and immobilize with a spring clamp. Place the 2 pieces with rabbets facing away from each other on the faceplate of the right angle fixture. Push the boards down and against the fence, then secure with a wooden hand screw clamp. Remove the spring clamp. The first cut for any tailboard will always remove the edge of the stock. To keep this first cut clean and splinter-free, you should always begin with a scoring pass. Then, sneak up to the first visible mark on the template in 1 or 2 passes. Once you've reached the first mark, cut 4B in this example, and made the cut, simply move the INCRA jig from B cut to B cut until you've cut across the full width of your material. Keep in mind that your first tail cut will be based on the width of stock you have centered on. It probably won't be 4B, and it may in fact be an A cut. After completing the cuts, press the right angle fixture against the fence and immobilize with your spring clamp. Then, flip the tailboards over and reclamp. Return the fence to a scoring pass, and again, repeat the tail series of cuts. Since your INCRA jig is set up with respect to the center of your stock, you don't need to worry about which edge of the tailboards is against the fence when flipping the stock on the right angle fixture. Use a smooth forward feed rate as you advance the tailboards through the cut, and an equally smooth rate as you retract the pieces. A haphazard pull of the right angle fixture back to the starting position can result in a cut that is slightly wider than it should be. This completes the tailboards. The pin cuts are made with the stock face down on the table. Move the INCRA jig to the first pin cut, which positions the cutter outside the fence, 4A in this example. Since the pin sockets are stopped cuts, bring the stop positioner just up to the outside diameter of the cutter and clamp in place. This stop setup will always produce a socket that is a little short, so we'll only cut one end of one piece at this time, then adjust as necessary. Move the stock into the cut until you just touch the stop. Don't force the material against the stop. Now, move the fence from A cut to A cut until you have cut across the full width of your material. Assemble the pin board to one of the tail boards to determine how much you need to adjust the cut length. The amount that the tails protrude is exactly how much the stop needs to be moved away from the cutter to achieve a flush fit. With a pencil, place a mark on the fence at the end of the stop positioner. Then, move the stop away from the mark an amount equal to how much the tails protruded from the pin sockets. Return the fence to the first pin cut and repeat the cuts for both ends of both pieces. When using a rubber-soled push block, position the push block about 1/4 of an inch or so behind the forward end of the board. This keeps pressure in the important area of the cut. Also, keep the push block about 1/4 of an inch or so away from the fence. This allows you to see that your wood is against the fence at all times. Always blow the table off between cuts, since a tiny chip between the board and the fence can easily change your cut location, while a chip underneath will raise the board, changing your depth of cut. Assemble both pin boards to one of the tails, then add the other tail board. There, a perfect half-blind dovetail. For this decorative joint, you'll need the same 4 pieces required for any half-blind joint, plus a piece of contrasting color stock about 8 inches long to make the corner post. All should be the same thickness and width. We're using 1/2-inch stock. After centering, set the fence to a scoring pass position and tighten the clamping knob. Press the right angle fixture against the fence and immobilize with a spring clamp. Then, clamp your 2 long pieces with a backing board to the faceplate using a wooden hand screw clamp. You can use your centering board as the backing board. After making the scoring pass, advance to the first visible mark on the template in 1 or 2 passes. Once you have reached the first mark, 4B in this example, and made the cut, we'll simply move the fence from one B cut to the next until we've cut across the full width of the material. Keep in mind that your first cut mark will be based on the width of stock that you have centered on. If you have centered on a 2 3/4 inch wide board as we have, your cut locations will be the same as ours. After completing the cuts, slide the right angle fixture back to the end of the fence, immobilize, and flip the stock. Always make sure the stock is securely down on the table and against the fence before clamping. Remove the spring clamp. Return the INCRA jig to a scoring pass position, and beginning with this cut, repeat the B series of cuts on the pieces. To make the corner posts, set the INCRA jig to the first A mark on the template that exposes the cutter in front of the fence and tighten the clamping knob. Using a rubber sole push block, cut a groove along the entire length of the corner post piece. Now, move the fence from one A mark to the next to cut the grooves across the full width of the corner post material. At the table saw, we'll use a miter gauge with a wooden subfence to crosscut the corner post stock. Place a cut from your box material against the blade and mark the subfence as shown. Advance the corner post stock about 1/16 of an inch past the mark of the subfence and crosscut 4 pieces. Use a brush to apply glue to 2 of the corner post pieces. Then, apply glue to both ends of the mating box side. Slide the corner post pieces onto each end of the box side and center so that the corner post overhangs each face of the larger piece slightly. We'll sand them flush later. Place scrap wood clamping cauls at each end and clamp. Wipe off excess glue squeeze out and set aside. Now repeat the glue up procedure for the remaining pieces and set aside to dry for about 30 minutes. At your sander, sand the corner posts flush with the face of the larger pieces. Reverse the piece direction to avoid oversanding one end. After sanding both faces of both pieces, turn off the sander and use the stationary belt to remove any glue squeeze out or overhang of the corner post along the edges of the material. To be clear, we are sanding the dark corner post pieces flush with the edges of the lighter piece, not the other way around. You do not want to change the width of the larger piece. From this point forward, all we are doing is using standard half-blind dovetail technique to join the 4 rectangles of wood. To cut the tailboards, we'll begin with the dovetail-shaped rabbets. Move the INCRA jig to a scoring pass position and tighten the clamping knob. Make the scoring pass across both ends of both pieces. The full rabbet width needs to be 7/32 of an inch, but rather than making the cut in a single pass, cut the rabbet with 3 subsequent passes, moving the fence back 1/16 of an inch for each cut. Now it's time for the through cuts. Clamp the right angle fixture with a spring clamp to lock it in place, and place the 2 tailboards with rabbets facing away from one another against the faceplate. Press the boards securely against the fence and table, then clamp in place with your wooden hand screw clamp. Return your INCRA jig to a scoring pass and make the cut. Now, advance to the first visible mark on the template in 1 or 2 passes. Once you've reached the first mark, cut 4B in this example, and made the cut, simply move the INCRA jig from B cut to B cut until you have cut across the full width of the material. After completing the cuts, immobilize the right angle fixture and flip the stock. Return the INCRA jig to a scoring pass, then repeat the tail series of cuts on your 2 boards. The pin cuts are made with the stock face down on the router table. Move the INCRA jig to the first pin cut, which positions the cutter outside the fence, 4A in this example. Since the pin sockets are stopped cuts, bring the stop positioner just up to the outside diameter of the cutter and clamp in place. This stop setup will always produce a socket that is a little short, so we'll only cut one end of one piece at this time, then adjust as necessary. Move the stock into the cut until you just touch the stop. Don't force the material against the stop. Now, move the fence from A cut to A cut until you have cut across the full width of your material. Assemble the pin board to one of the tail boards to determine how much you need to adjust the cut length. With a pencil, place a mark in line with the end of the stop positioner, then move the stop away from the mark an amount equal to how much the tails protruded from the pin sockets. Return the fence to the first pin cut and repeat the cuts for both ends of both pieces. Always blow the table off between cuts, since a tiny chip between the board and fence or table can easily change your cut location or alter the fit. Assemble both pin boards to one of the tail boards, then add the other tail board and drive the tails home. Try this joint on your next jewelry box project. When preparing stock for through dovetails, remember that for a given cutter, there is one and only one depth of cut that will provide a good fit. Once you have established the depth, as described in the depth of cut chapter, thickness plane your stock down to match the depth of cut. Never raise the cutter up to match your stock thickness. After centering and installing the dovetail template, set the INCRA jig to a scoring pass position and tighten the clamping knob. Press the right angle fixture against the fence and immobilize with your spring clamp. Then, clamp the two shorter pieces of stock with a backing board to the faceplate. You can use your centering board as the backing board. Securely tighten the wooden hand screw clamp. After making the scoring pass cut, advance to the first visible mark on the template in one or two passes. Once you've reached the first mark, 4B in this example, move the fence from one B-cut mark to the next until you've cut across the full width of the stock. After completing the cuts, immobilize your right angle fixture with a spring clamp and flip the stock over. Make sure the stock is pressed securely to the table and against the fence before clamping in place. Return the fence to a scoring pass position, then repeat the cuts on the tailboards. After completing the tail cuts, return the right angle fixture to the end of the fence and immobilize with your spring clamp. Flip the backing board over and add the 2 pin boards. Tighten the hand screw clamp and then remove the spring clamp. Move the INCRA jig to the first A cut location, which places the bit just outside the fence, 4A in this example. Tighten the clamping knob and make the cut. Now, move the fence from one A cut to the next to complete the cuts across the full width of the pin boards. Return the right angle fixture to the end of the fence, immobilize, and flip the stock. Then, repeat the pin series of cuts across your stock. Now, we'll again repeat the pin series of cuts, this time with the material face down on the table. Return your INCRA jig to the first pin cut on the template. With the router off, slide one of the pieces to nest the cutter inside the existing cut. We need to stop the cut just before the cutter contacts the end of the existing cut. Slide a stop positioner up to the end of the board and clamp in place. Slide the board away from the cutter, turn on your router, and using a good rubber-soled push block, make the cut at both ends of both boards. Now, move your INCRA jig from one A-cut location to the next to complete the cuts on each of your 2 pin boards. Always keep the same face down on your router table through the entire series of cuts. If you try to assemble your pin and tail pieces at this moment, you would find that a small triangle of wood blocks the 2 pieces from sliding together. To complete the joint, all that you need to do is whittle off this triangle of wood. This can be accomplished with a pocket knife, a razor knife, or a chisel as shown. Just follow the line of cut that was established by the dovetail bit straight back into the corner. Then assemble for a perfect through dovetail. For this demonstration, we've centered for 2.5 inch wide material. After centering and installing the box joint template, move the fence to a scoring pass position and tighten the clamping knob. Press the right angle fixture against the fence and immobilize with a spring clamp. Now, clamp 2 pieces with a backing board to the faceplate. You can use your centering board as a backing piece. Securely tighten the wooden hand screw clamp, then remove the spring clamp. Beginning with the scoring pass, advance to the first visible mark on the template in 1 or 2 passes. Once you've reached the first mark, 4A in this example, and made the cut, simply move the INCRA jig from 1A cut to the next until you've cut across the full width of the material. Keep in mind that your first cut will be based on the width of stock you have centered on. Unless you are using 2.5 inch wide material as shown in this demonstration, it probably won't be 4A, and it may in fact be one of the B cuts. After completing the cuts on one end of the 2 boards, immobilize the right angle fixture with your spring clamp and flip the 2 boards over. Clamp the pieces in place and repeat the same series of cuts, beginning with the scoring pass. Now, we'll make the B series of cuts on the remaining 2 pieces of stock. Immobilize the right angle fixture and flip the backing board over to present a fresh backing surface. Add the 2 pieces of stock and securely tighten the wooden hand screw clamp. Remove the spring clamp. Move the INCRA jig to the first B mark that positions the cutter outside the fence and make the cut. Now, advance from one B-cut location to the next until you have cut across the full width of your material. As always, when using the right angle fixture, apply side pressure with your right hand to keep the right angle fixture against the face of the fence throughout the cut. Apply downward pressure with your left hand to keep the ends of your board firmly in contact with the table. After completing this series of cuts, flip your stock on the right angle fixture one last time and repeat the B-cut locations. Now assemble the pieces for a simple but effective joint that adds strength and beauty to your next project. While every cut mark on a selected template that falls within your stock width must be made in order to produce a box joint or dovetail, you can change the order to create many interesting variations. The variations technique is really quite simple. By leaving cuts out on one side of a joint and then using the drop cuts on the other side, you can modify the look of an existing template design. Let's take a look at a few examples. On this pinboard, we've skipped cuts 3A and 7A during the cutting process. This leaves wider pins between the sockets. To modify the tails to match, we simply make all of the required B cuts, plus we add in the 2 A cuts dropped when cutting the pins. On this tailboard, we've skipped cuts 3B and 8B during the cutting process. This leaves wider tails. To modify the pins to match, we simply make all of the usual A cuts, then remove the excess between the appropriate sockets. When cutting the pins, it is best to take out the excess material with several light side-by-side passes rather than trying to remove the material in a single pass. You can even skip cuts on both sides of the joint to produce combinations of wide and narrow pins and tails. Just remember, whenever using the variations technique, you must always modify the joint pattern symmetrically. Give it a try sometime. Now that you've seen and learned about some of the many things you can do with an INCRA jig, it's time for you to start writing the next chapter in the INCRA jig story. All of the great projects you've been dreaming of are just a few well-placed cuts away, and now you've got just the right tool to make it happen. So put on that old shop apron, pick out a few nice boards, and let INCRA help make your next project a success.
It's all too common. You spend an hour or more with countless trial and error cuts in order to make a simple mitered frame, knowing that more than likely it still won't be perfect. And while you might eventually set the protractor to the correct angle, You can't correct the error caused by the loose fit between your miter bar and the channel. Let's face it, there's only one thing standing between you and beautiful angle-intensive projects like these: your current miter gauge. Wouldn't it be great to set your miter gauge to the desired angle, make the cut, then assemble a gap-free mitered frame on the first try? Sound like a dream? Not anymore. With INCRA's new line of precision miter gauges, you can expect perfect results the first time and so much more. Simple, intuitive operation, unbelievable angle control, perfect, repeatable cut lengths, and performance beyond your wildest dreams. It all starts with incremental angle control. INCRA's angle lock protractor heads set a new standard for what you should expect from a miter gauge. Each protractor head begins with heavy gauge steel plate that is CNC laser cut to include a series of precisely located V-notches. These V-notches become the basis for INCRA's patented incremental angle control mechanism. Just index the actuator tooth into the selected V-notch and lock your angle in place for perfect cutting results. The numbers speak for themselves. Your standard issue miter gauge has only 3 angle index stops. These expensive alternatives have up to 12. But with INCRA's exclusive angle lock protractors, angle indexing is more than a token offering. From the economical V27 with 27 angle index stops to the powerful Miter 3000 with 364, mitered projects like these have never been more accessible or more accurate. The Glide Lock miter bar is more than just a solid foundation for INCRA's precision miter gauges. Just turn the fastener in each of the Glide Lock's patented miter bar expansion mechanisms to lock in the perfect glide and fit for your table saw's miter channel. No more inconsistent results because of play between the bar and channel. Each precision machine bar is additionally fitted with INCRA's exclusive top-mounted T-slot retainer clip. The retainer clip is easily removed for use in non-T-slot channels. At the top of INCRA's line, the Miter 1000 SE, the Miter 3000, and the Miter 3000 SE are all finished with the addition of the INCRA Lock cutoff fence and flip shop stop positioner for precise control of your cut length. Featuring the use of INCRA's patented 1/32 inch incremental positioning racks, you can instantly and accurately return to any former stop setting with no guesswork. And the Micro Adjust feature permits easy and precise fine-tuning of your stop position. The flip arms and fence include INCRA's patented tongue-and-groove surface interface to provide a positive stop for even the sharpest of mitered joints. In the expanded clamping mode, the stop performs flawlessly with user-made zero-clearance subfences for tear-out-free cross-cutting. INCRA's extensive line features a miter gauge for every price range and mitering requirement. The Miter V27, with 27 angle index stops and a 15 3/4 inch glide lock miter bar, this economical model is a great no-nonsense gauge for your table saw, and a superior mitering accessory for important tools like the bandsaw, belt and disc sanders, and your router table. The universal work support easily accepts user-made wooden subfences for tear-out-free cross-cutting. The Miter 1000, with 41 angle index stops and a 17 3/4 inch glide lock miter bar, this affordable offering includes an 18 inch aluminum fence with sliding stop block. For angle settings between stops, it features a high-quality stainless steel scale and 1/4 degree vernier cursor. The Miter 1000 SE. This special edition version of the Miter 1000 adds a telescoping INCRA cutoff fence that adjusts from 18 to 30 inches. It includes the incremental flip shop stop positioner for repeatable cut length control, and an exclusive 1/10 degree stainless steel vernier cursor for ultra-fine angle control between stops. The Miter 2000. This heavy-duty workhorse from INCRA features 110 angle stops and a 20 1/4 inch glide lock miter bar. The 27-inch INCRA cutoff fence and the incremental shop stop positioner put your cuts exactly on target. The Miter 3000. This top-of-the-line miter gauge features an awesome 364 angle stops and a 20 1/4 inch glide lock miter bar. This gauge's motto: any angle, any project, any time. A great choice for the high accuracy requirements of segmented turning and so much more. The 27-inch INCRA cutoff fence and flip shop stop are just the ticket for perfect control at your table saw. The Miter 3000 SE. This special edition version of the Miter 3000 adds a telescoping INCRA cutoff fence that adjusts from 27 to 48 inches and includes the incremental flip shop stop positioner. The Miter Express. The Miter Express is the perfect accessory to add to any of the INCRA miter gauges. Simply drop your miter gauge into the receiving slot on the Miter Express for a quick and easy upgrade to a sled-based mitering tool. And it works with any other miter gauge as well. The top accessible Glide Lock 2 miter bar expands for a perfect fit in your miter channel. Use the handy outboard fence support with longer fences for superior fence rigidity, and with its built-in T-slots and included hold-down clamp, your work will always be held securely. The Miter Express is great for handling workpieces both small and large, with two models offering up to 24 inches of crosscut capacity, and the locking drop panel safely catches the cutoffs. Want to convert back to your standard miter gauge for the next few cuts? Just loosen the locking feature and lift. It only takes a few seconds. Ah, the common ruler. It's hard to read. You can't get a good measurement because of the thickness or parallax. You make two marks because the first one isn't close enough. And it won't stay put. Do any of these describe your experience with your own ruler? INCRA has the solution. Introducing INCRA Marking Rules, the first real improvement in the common ruler since measuring began. Microfine marking holes locate your pencil mark exactly on target. Draw a perfectly located dot using the marking holes, or locate a short line precisely where you want it. Instant, easy accuracy without eye strain. You can't miss. For metalwork, you can even use a sharp scribe to mark a dimple, then simply connect the dots. How about this refinement? Half holes and slots on the end put your mark precisely at 0. Your old ruler would miss by this much. Strong but flexible stainless steel construction lets you accurately mark and measure along curves. Concave or convex, INCRA marking rules easily conform to any project shape. Try this with your ruler. It's also the quickest, easiest, and most accurate compass you'll ever use. INCRA marking rules are offered in 6, 12, and 18-inch lengths, with metric versions also available. Let's look at some other measuring and marking solutions from INCRA. Does this look familiar? The combination square, a common tool for marking lines parallel to an edge of your workpiece. But for every new measurement, the head must be relocated. It's time-consuming and inaccurate. There must be a better way. Introducing the new INCRA T rule. It does the same job as your old combination square and much more. But instead of adjusting a headpiece for each new measurement, simply move your pencil to another hole. It's like a combination square that's always set to every measurement and far more accurate. Use the 1/32 inch holes for drawing lines. Here we are marking drill centers for a cabinet door handle, 1 inch from this edge, then 2 inches and 5 inches from this edge. It's also a precision T-square for marking at right angles to the edge of your work. And you can precisely locate short marks using the individually numbered 1/16 and 1/32 inch marking slots. Or use the 1/64 inch scale for ultra-high resolution. The professional T rule even includes marking holes every 1/100th of an inch. Now that's precision. And remember, any of the INCRA rules can be used for marking metal by simply using a sharp scribe. For even more versatility, the T-bar is adjustable for making precise vertical measurements above your work surface. The handy 3-inch Tiny T is perfect for small workpieces and tucks away in your shop apron pocket. INCRA T rules are offered in 3, 6, 12, and 18-inch lengths. Metric versions are also available. Do you ever find yourself working on the narrow edge of a workpiece? It's not easy to steady the ruler and place your mark. You might try marking the wide face, then transfer the mark with a square, a tedious and slow process at best, but not anymore. Introducing the INCRA Bend Rule. The Bend Rule's 90-degree shape locks snug against the corner of any workpiece, while the corner marking slots let you wrap your mark all the way around the corner. And it stays in place with just one hand for those difficult vertical measurements. Microfine marking holes and slots at every measurement ensure effortless accuracy. Here, we're laying out a hinge mortise. Use the end of the bend rule to draw perfect perpendiculars and draw precise parallels with the vertical marking scale. This job used to require all of these tools. Now it's quicker, easier, and far more accurate with INCRA rules. Recognize this problem? You're trying to confirm a measurement on a drawing and the ruler is too thick to let you get an accurate reading. You lean over the ruler and parallax drives you crazy. You stand the ruler on edge, but then the marks disappear. The INCRA Bend Rule solves all of these problems. The triangular shape puts the scale lines right on your work and angles the numbers right at you. No parallax, easy to read, perfect accuracy. INCRA Bend Rules are offered in 6, 12, and 18-inch lengths, with metric versions also available. But INCRA has more than just rulers. Is this how you try to mark an angle? Well, INCRA has a better way. The INCRA Marking Protractor, an easy-to-use precision tool for marking any angle on any workpiece. The red T-bar ensures exact placement along the edge of your work, while the view window makes it easy to find and align with your starting point. And like all INCRA rules, microfine marking holes and slots at every position locate your mark exactly. No effort, no eye strain, perfect accuracy. The red T-bar is removable for using the protractor on the interior of your workpiece. The see-through window aligns the crosshairs. Then place your mark at the interior 5-degree scale, the outer 1-degree scale, or the ultra-fine half-degree scale. You can't miss. And finally, it's a 6-inch centering scale with marking holes and a precision compass too. Finding and marking a center on your workpiece is easy and accurate with INCRA's centering rule. Use the microfine marking holes to locate marks relative to a center point. Or use the exclusive protractor feature to transfer perfect angles to your workpiece. The new Precision XY marker measures from both edges of a corner in one operation. Locate drill centers fast and accurately. Great for positioning cabinet doorknobs and handles. One or both T-bars can be removed for single edge referencing or flat work. And like all INCRA rules, the easy-to-read, no-glare matte finish along with the unique grid layout make finding and leaving your mark effortless. For more information about the entire line of INCRA rules and our many other exciting woodworking products, visit your local INCRA dealer today, or take a look at our website at www.incra.com.